Hey everyone, how's it going? So for this week's lesson I wanted to cover something that I got asked about a lot after the last video. Speaking of which, thanks to everyone who watched, shared, subscribed, liked the video. It really helps and it really means a ton, and it gives us a chance to make this channel grow a little more, and hopefully further down the line I can do some more performance content as opposed to just instructional, and just give you guys some better and more varied content in the future. Anyway, that said, getting back to the lesson. So I got a lot of questions about chords and harmony and how I look at chord voicings and how I manipulate them. And I thought that would be a really interesting topic to talk about, but it's very broad, so I wanted to narrow the focus down a little more and talk about a technique I use a fair bit to find new voicings and have used to find substitutions for chords and things, and this is called tension substitution. And it's really helpful to get a lot more mileage out of your existing chordal vocabulary. Now, I will say that you would need probably a decent understanding of drop 2s and their inversions, and drop 3s and their inversions in major 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and dominant 7 varieties. So with all that said and done, let's get that out of the way and actually discuss what on earth is tension substitution, some of you may be thinking. And in reality, it's a fairly straightforward concept, and it's actually an arranging concept that's used a lot for horns, strings, or really anywhere where you have a voicing in the parts, and allows you to substitute chord tones, namely the 1, 3, and 5, the 7 never gets substituted, for an available tension, which could be 9, 11, and or 13. And the general rule of thumb here is as follows. You would substitute the root, or the 1, for tension 9. 3 would substitute for your 11, this can be natural or sharp 11 depending on the context, and your 13 would be substituted for your 5. So instead of using the 5 in the voicing, you would use either natural 13 or flat 13, again, depending on the context. And that's really the bulk of the concept. It's actually fairly straightforward. Where things start to get interesting is the actual application of it. So now that we've discussed the general rule of thumb, again, 9 for 1, 11 for 3, 13 for 5, remember that and you'll be all good. So now that we've got that out of the way and just a general idea of what the concept is, let's actually put this into practical context. So what happens is you can either do one substitution and substitute one of the chord tones, or you can substitute all of them, aside from the 7, of course, and varying degrees in between, and that will give you a different sound. So let's go in detail and really discuss how the substitution works. So let's take a basic C major 7 chord. Just your standard drop 2. And all we're going to do is substitute 9 for 1. So instead of playing C, we're going to be playing D. In context. Now what does that give us? That gives us actually something that's very familiar. It's a third inversion E minor 7 chord. So that actually gives us a nice little shortcut that I'll get into in a bit, where we can form a minor 7 chord off of the third of a major 7 chord to get a substitution. Now, that gives us one. Just gives us one variety. So how about we expand this a little more? Let's say we want to do 11 for 3. Now, in this case, because it's a major chord, it would be sharp 11 instead of natural 11. And if you're not sure as to why, please feel free to check out my last video on chord scales where I discuss a little bit about what avoid notes are. So, getting to the voicing, we would take the 3, E, and play, instead of that, we would play F sharp. Thus. So that's a nice sound in and of itself. However, what if we tried the last substitution? What sound would that give us? So we would take our major voicing and substitute the 5 for 13, which would give us this. And that's a color I love to use a lot. It's probably one of my favorite major voicings. So those are the different varieties of substituting one tension for a chord tone. However, this can also not just be used in one position, it can be used on any inversion, and it'll give you a different sound. So for example, let's say we have that first inversion major 7 chord, and we did the 9 for 1 substitution. That gives us our root position, E minor 7, right? So now what happens when we substitute more than one, when we make more than one substitution? Let's try 2. So I want to do 9 for 1 and 13 for 5 in this context. So we would have, instead of C, we would have D. Instead of G, we would have A. And the result would be this, which gives us a nice suspended quality, but when you put it over C, it actually has a nice context to it. Usually it's a little more clear when you're playing this in an actual bass context, where someone's actually providing that fundamental harmony underneath you without getting into lower interval limits. But what you would find is you'd have the 9, the 13, and your 2 guide tones, the 7 and the 3. So you would have this really nice little quality, and you can pare that down and not play all 4 chords at once, 4 notes at once. Play maybe 3, or however, in whatever context you would like to play that in. But what if we made all 3 substitutions? Then we would end up with the following. Because we have 9 for 1, 13 for 5, and 11 for 3. Now this is also familiar. This is actually a first inversion B minor 7 chord. So this gives us another little shortcut, if you will. So not only have we found all these different chords, or these different variations of this major 7 chord, such as we've also found little shortcuts for ourselves. So by shortcuts I mean we found these little quick fixes to quickly navigate substitutions, in that we now know a minor 7 chord built off of the third of a major 7 chord will give us a substitution that we can use in that context. The same can be said for building a minor 7 chord off of the 7th degree of your major 7 chord. And this can be done with all your chord types, but the key, and I've mentioned this a lot throughout the lesson, is to remember context. If, say, we're in a Dorian context, then for our minor 7 chord, we can use tensions 9, 11, and 13. However, if we're in an Aeolian context, we would only be able to use 9 and 11, because 13 would technically be an avoid note in that specific scenario. So it's important to really not only just experiment with one chord type, for example, just only work on major 7. It's important to work on minor 7, dominant 7, especially with the alterations for dominant 7, with flat 9, sharp 9, or flat 13, and also your minor 7, flat 5 chords, which would yield interesting colors. So through working on those, we gain a better understanding of harmony. But by using this technique, we also kind of start moving outside of our conventional drop 2 and drop 3 boxes. And as such, by using the vocabulary that we already know and just making some small tweaks, we gain new ideas and cover new ground. So in conclusion, I hope this lesson's really helped you guys out and given you an insight into how I view harmony and chordal playing, or at least just a small glimpse into how I think when it comes to this. If you have any questions, please do feel free to message me through Facebook, YouTube, send me an email, whatever works for you. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, or share this video if you know someone who would really benefit, or if you liked what you saw in this video. And if you have any other lesson topics, it can be about improvisation, composition, more harmony, or chordal playing, or any topic you can think of, please feel free to let me know. It helps me tailor these videos to you guys. So once again, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.